Welcome back and thank you for staying with us. Now, Agri SA has slammed government's proposed water licensing regulations that require black shareholding of up to 75%. The organization says this will seriously impact food security and argues this will not actually help transformation. Let's get some reaction now to this from Sipho Skosana. He's the Director of Water Allocation at the Water and Sanitation Department. Mr. Skosana, thank you very much for your time here on eNCA. Maybe let's just start by clarifying what government meant by this gazette, because it's sparked a debate around, the black and white debate and whether or not Agri SA is basically saying the entering of black farmers means that there won't be any food security. That's a sentiment that some people are driving. Just clarify this for us, please, Sipho.
Thanks, Masiko. The government put into a gazette draft regulations that are being reviewed. The intention really, Masiko, is to look into various ways of making sure that as the regulator, we do our work and we engage in a manner that is also going to be easier for the people who are using the water resources. So, but zooming straight into your question, you will remember that our legislation, in terms of Section 2 of our legislation, provides that our water resources should be managed in a manner that, amongst other things, take into account the issue of equitable allocation of water. Now, that is the purpose. It says we must ensure, actually under Section 3 of the same legislation, it gives the public trusteeship of our water resources to the country, and actually that is exercised through the minister. And it also enjoins the minister to make sure that in the manner in which our water is allocated, it reflects the demographics of the country. Now, fast forward that and say our legislation was actually enacted in 1998. But to date, Masiko, I need to say this, that our calculations shows that 98% of our water resources are still in the hands of whites, meaning that we haven't transformed. Now, taking forward the mandate that the minister is having in terms of the legislation, we are saying, how do we make sure that within the remaining 2% of our water resources, actually our people get access to that amount of water that is remaining. So now, when Agri SA they bring this argument to say, if we transform and actually say in terms of our regulations, we want now to see black people having a stake, and they are saying it's going to threaten food security, I think they should be explaining to the South Africans as to what do they mean, because we are not saying we are going to transform based on what is already allocated to them. We are already having the food security because actually they are having 98% of our water resources. But we are saying the new water that is to be allocated, actually the black people must be seen to be participating. And we are asking them, and we are hoping that they will engage with us and bring facts into the table and explain as to why, when we are saying we want to bring black people into the mainstream of economy using the allocation of water, that will be a threat to a food security. Thanks, Marcel.
And now the other point that they bring up, Sipho, and of course, looking at the history of our country, the racial history of our country, and, quota politics that we're still seeing here and there in terms of class, they're saying that what government is doing, they're saying when they saw the gazette, basically they sounded the alarm, and they're accusing government of, granting access to water based on your skin color.
Masiko, the reality is that there is only one skin color that is having 98% of the water in the country. So they must explain that outcry, because I think to an extent it would have been understandable if we were saying to them, bring back what you have and let's put it in the basket and reallocate. So there is a process possibly that will look into that, depending on how far do we go in allocating the 2% that is left. But for them to cry wolf and then therefore without giving us facts and saying we are then looking into the skin color and yet most of the water is allocated to them is worrisome. But we don't, Masiko, in any case, want to go into a slanging match with Agri SA or any of our partners in the water sector, because we consider Agri SA as part of our partners and who are the biggest user of our water resources. We are saying we've put the Gazette out there for public comments. Agri SA, they might be having a strong views with respect to what we are communicating, but we are giving them a chance to submit, because we are not saying this is final regulation. I don't understand why it has been interpreted in the manner in which it's interpreted, because it's still a proposal, and we are saying give us your comment and we will engage, even if they can go beyond of giving us their comments and they can say, department, we want to engage and we want to present to you and explain exactly what do we mean when we are saying the food security is going to be threatened. We are open to that and we are open to engage. But for them to throw statements in the media which are not substantiated, I think they are causing unnecessary panic to the country, and we are worried about that as the department.
I know that government gazettes a lot of change to regulation all the time, and then the public is asked to comment. What prompted this particular gazette, number one, and how did government reach 75%? I know that there's 25, 50, but how did you reach a 75% quota?
Okay, what prompted this gazette, Masiko? There are a number of issues, and we're happy that you are asking that, because we got worried when this issue of quotas was elevated above all the other issues that were in the gazette. In the first instance is that in 2017, when we gazetted these regulations for the first time, when we brought the current regulations into operations, we wanted to bring in the time frames of processing the license, because there was an outcry there to say our water use licensing is taking longer. Then we brought those regulations and we actually put 300 days as the timeline for processing water use licenses. But since then, in the SONA of 2020 and 2021, the president gave us marching orders to say 300 days is unworkable, it's a lot of number of days. We need to move from 300 days to 90 days. That has been the instruction that we've been implementing since then, as instructed by the president. But having said that, that 90 days is not yet gazetted, is not yet the law. So now in that gazette, we wanted to review the 300 days and go to 90 days. But we took advantage of other things that are actually mandated by our legislation, which we could change in this gazette, so that we can harmonize all the other issues that are in a legislation into the delegated legislation as it is. For instance, you will realize that when we process licenses, then we had one amount that is being charged to all the applicants as a license processing fee. Then, but in reality, you will find that the application for licenses are for different uses, and they differ in terms of the complexity, then the amount of effort needed to process each license. Then we look into those, then we said we are going to actually move away from one license process fee, then and categorize the type of license applications that we're having, and in that manner maybe different license processing fees. These are some of the things that we looked at, and we are also saying, because of the impacts, the environmental impacts that some of the applications are having, the Act under Section 41.4, it actually mandates the responsible authority to actually instruct the applicants to do public participation. but the Act used the word may. It becomes a prerogative of the responsible authority. The industry came back to us and say it's unworkable as it is because it doesn't allow us to plan better when we're making applications. Can you then go into type of applications and tell us upfront explicitly which type of applications will be subjected to public participation and which will not? So, and with these regulations, this is some of the information that we put out, Masuku.
Sipho, just lastly, Agri SA says in the National Water Act, right, Section 27 of that Act has many other considerations that they say DWS didn't consider at all. They're saying that instead of considering 10 or more, pointers in the National Water Act, you just basically looked at making triple BEE the condition for giving licenses for water.
I don't think it's accurate to say that, Masiho. We've been considering all those considerations under Section 27(1)(b). That being said, what this regulation helps is that it helps to refine and to give the specificity in terms of what is meant by Section 27(1)(b). Because when you read Section 27(1)(b) in our legislation, it says then we've got a duty when we are considering the license application to ensure that we redress the results of the past racial and gender discrimination. Now, what has been the gap in doing that was the how part, was to say, when we are saying that in simple terms, what do we mean? Then when we are bringing these regulations, we provide specific issues that should be considered. And we're saying, when we're saying we're addressing the result of the past racial and gender discrimination, this is exactly what we're doing.
All right. Thank you so much, Sipho, for speaking to us here on eNCA. That was the Director of Water Allocation at the Water and Sanitation Department, Sipho Skosana.